Hey, hey, hey. Time for another Out of This World story from rSpace. Some people chase their dreams with grit and hard work. Others, they chase promotions by chasing someone else's spouse. Today on rSpace, what happens when cheating becomes the cheapest shortcut to success? Cheating wife begged me to keep her secret to protect her affair partner. I made sure they both lost their jobs. I've always been the type of guy to trust my gut. It's done me a lot of good over the years. I've built up my career just relying on my instincts to make good decisions. When I first fell in love with my wife, Mary, 29 female, I thought she was the one. I know how cliche it sounds, but it's true. Everything was perfect between us. I loved being around her, and she made me laugh. Things were great, but over the past year, my gut started telling me something was off. I didn't consciously notice any signs. I just had a vague feeling that our relationship was taking a turn. I'm old enough to understand that the honeymoon phase doesn't last forever, but this felt different. It felt like she was falling out of love with me. She wasn't shutting me out or anything, but she seemed distracted. She did all the normal stuff, like kissing me goodbye or laughing at my jokes, but it all felt forced or kind of robotic. I think the best way to put it is to say the passion was gone. I did my best to fix it. I got her gifts, arranged date nights, and tried to promote open communication in our relationship. I'd sit down and spend long nights with her, talking and trying to make sure we were still on the same page in our relationship. But no matter what I did, it wouldn't make any change. She'd talk to me, but I could tell she still wasn't opening up to me. It felt like I was alone in the relationship, with someone who was slowly checking out. Despite all that, I never suspected that she was cheating on me. I knew the relationship was doomed, and I guessed it was only a matter of time before she told me she wanted to take some time apart, or worse. But I never imagined that she would actually be seeing someone else. So it was a real shock when I came across a suspicious notification on her phone. I wasn't snooping or anything. I came across it naturally. She's really bad about charging her phone, sometimes letting it die completely before she thinks to plug it in. I usually help her charge it when I see it lying around with a low battery. It's an unofficial arrangement we've had from the beginning of our marriage, and I've never thought much about it. But this time, when I plugged the phone in and the screen lit up, I saw a notification from her boss. It was pretty explicit and left no doubt that something was going on. She was at the kitchen table on her laptop, which meant she probably wouldn't be up for a while. So I took the chance and opened her messages. From what I could see there, Mary had been sleeping with her boss, Caleb, for a few months now. But this wasn't just a case of sleeping with her boss. Mary works in corporate law, and Caleb is one of the partners in her firm. She always spoke highly of him and usually mentioned how she wanted to model her career trajectory after his. He was only 36, and he had already been a partner for a few years. He drove a great car, wore expensive suits, and generally projected the image of success that people associated with high-powered lawyers. He was everything she wanted to be. A few months back, she told me that he started mentoring her and talked about how that put her on the fast track for making partner. At the time, that sounded like really good news. Becoming a partner was her biggest career goal, and it would be huge for us. I had different feelings now that I understood exactly what that fast track looked like. I scrolled, hoping it was a one-time thing, but it was obvious that it had been happening on multiple occasions. It was a regular thing. They even had cute nicknames for each other. It was obvious that this wasn't just physical. They were emotionally involved too. I'm not sure why that made it worse for me. Maybe it was because she'd been so emotionally unavailable recently and I was doing my best to communicate with her and fix our relationship, and she was actively sabotaging it and giving herself to another man. I won't lie, it broke me. But somehow it got worse. When I got back far enough, I found some recurring conversations where she would complain about them having to pretend. She wanted him to leave his wife so they could be together. According to her, she was ready to leave me at any time. I don't think I need to describe how it feels to find out that you're that disposable, but somehow it got even worse. Caleb told her that he wasn't going to leave his wife for her. He claimed there was too much at stake and that it could ruin him professionally if he got together with an employee. He kept repeating that she needed to be careful, too, because they could both lose their jobs. He said he could keep helping her career, and that if she was patient, they could get together after she became a partner. She hadn't just thrown away our marriage. She did it for a vague promise for someone who obviously was using her. I knew Caleb wasn't going to leave his wife for her. He'd never make her a partner, so he wouldn't have to deliver on his promise. Mary was being used, and she was too stupid to see it. I was paralyzed for a moment. I didn't know what to do next. I think it was the first time in my life that I was actually in shock. It took a few minutes for me to regain my composure, and I figured out that the next thing I needed to do was document everything. I needed to protect myself. Our marriage has been dying for a while, and now it was finally dead. The best I could do was make sure I had all the ammo I could get for the inevitable divorce. When I was done sending all of their messages to my email, I was faced with the decision of how to proceed. Should I confront her right away and get this over with? Or would it be better to pretend I didn't know anything and keep gathering evidence? Ironically, I just decided to pretend not to know anything when she walked in on me holding her phone. I was about to lie and say I was charging it when she marched over to me and swiped it out of my hand. She didn't even make an attempt to hide the guilt on her face. We were both quiet for a while, until I asked her if she had anything she wanted to tell me. There was no point in either of us pretending anymore. We both knew what was up. She didn't answer right away. She stared at her phone for a little while. At first I thought she was thinking, but then I realized she was reading. She was looking at the messages I had seen on her phone. She was trying to figure out how much I knew, probably so she could figure out how to lie to me. I told her not to bother lying to me. I'd read everything, and I'd sent everything to myself. This would be easier if she just told me the truth. She sighed and sat down beside me. Then she said, "I wish I could have done this without hurting you." She explained that she'd fallen for Caleb when he started mentoring her, and they quickly started an affair. They loved each other, but he was married, and he couldn't leave his wife yet. She told me that she'd been scared to leave me while he was still married because she didn't want to end up alone. How sweet. She claimed she didn't want to hurt me, but she'd been using me for months as a companion she neglected while she was out screwing someone else. I also noticed that she didn't mention anything about his offer to make her a partner. Maybe she was hoping I'd forget about that. I couldn't. I asked her if she realized that he was lying about everything. I told her that he'd never leave his family for her, and he was just using her for cheap sex on the side. That got a big reaction from her. She wasn't even mad that I insulted him. She was angry that I'd called Caleb a liar. That was when I realized that she actually cared about this man. She was in love with a married man who was leading her on, and somehow that love superseded the love I thought she had for me. She was a bigger idiot than I thought. I think that was the moment when my feelings for her did a 180. I'd been mad at her for cheating on me, and I'd felt betrayed. But after that, I realized there was nothing left for me in her anymore. She wasn't worth fighting for. She was a cheating slut who gave it up for a chance at a promotion. Caleb could have her. He'd dump her when he was done with her, and she'd be back on the streets where she belonged. I made sure to tell her that. Insulting Caleb seemed to be a sore spot for her, and it made me feel good to get a rise out of her. Childish, I know, but it's all I had at the moment. We got into a back and forth that got really heated. We called each other some very nasty names, and I had quite a few four-letter words to call her. The argument ended with me telling her to get out of the house. I told her I was going to be filing for divorce, and I never wanted her back in the house. She tried to argue her way into getting me to leave the house instead. She said she has as much legal right to be here as I did, and if I didn't want her around, then I was free to leave. I didn't let her lawyer me. I stood my ground and insisted she needed to get out. It took a lot of arguing, but she eventually caved. After she left, I sat on the floor, rereading the messages that I'd sent to myself. Somehow it felt unreal, like I dreamed up the whole thing. I was reluctant to go back into the bedroom because I wasn't ready to face the reality that my bed was empty because my wife had been climbing into another man's. I don't think I slept much that night. I think I dozed off for about half an hour around dawn, out of sheer exhaustion. The next day, I immediately got in touch with a divorce lawyer. I took my time, making sure I picked out a good one, because I knew Mary would have a good lawyer herself. I wasn't going to let her cheat on me and then scalp me just because I cheaped out on my defense. When I finally chose a lawyer, I met up with him the same day. After going through the details of my relationship, I showed him the messages that I had documented. He was satisfied with what he saw. He actually said the messages were good news. I got the impression that he didn't really care about my feelings. He just wanted to win the case. And that was fine with me because winning was all I wanted too. Mary called me twice since I kicked her out of the house. She never apologized for what she'd done, but she didn't try to justify herself either. She just asked how I was holding up, in the same tone you'd use for a friend who was down with a bad cold or something. Then she said that we really needed to talk, and that it was important that I didn't talk to anyone else before we did. The first time I told her I didn't want to talk with her, I hung up. When she called again and made the same request, I got a little intrigued. My lawyer has advised me not to talk with her without him present, but I'm honestly kind of curious. So I wanted to ask for advice. Should I hear her out and see what she has to say, or should I just tell her to get lost? Your wife sounds like she checked out way before you even noticed, and then went and made the worst possible choice, trading you for some sleazy boss who's just using her? Oof. She threw away what you had for a fantasy that was never going to happen. Caleb's not leaving his wife, and she's the fool thinking otherwise. Update. When I made the original post, I was just looking for a place to let my feelings out and ask for some advice. It turns out that people were really interested in seeing how everything was going to end. I never had any plans on updating since I thought this would just be a straightforward divorce, but there was some pretty interesting developments. So here I am again. To everyone who said Mary only wanted to talk because she was trying to cover her own butt, you were completely right. We met up to talk shortly after I served her with the divorce papers. I had two reasons for meeting up with her. For one thing, I was curious. I wanted to know what she was so desperate to discuss. My second reason was just a matter of logistics. I wanted us to discuss the divorce and come to an agreement on how we were going to do things if possible. I wasn't going to be stupid about it though. We met in a public place, at a bench, at a local community park. I didn't think she would try to accuse me of doing anything to her, but I hadn't thought she would cheat on me either. I didn't know her as well as I thought I did, so I practiced every bit of caution that I could. She sat down beside me on the bench. All she said was a small, "Hi," which I returned. I waited for her to get to the point. I wasn't in the mood for any small talk with her. I could tell she wasn't either, because she jumped right into it. She told me that she wanted us to come to an agreement. She felt like we didn't need to get into a long legal battle over the division of assets, and we could just handle things maturely, with a discussion. I was instantly suspicious, and I guessed what was up. I asked her if she just didn't want me to bring up her affair during the divorce. She said she knew it was a big request for her to ask me not to bring up the affair at all, but she just wanted me to protect Caleb's identity. If his name came up during all of this, then the other partners would expel him from the partnership, and as long as his name wasn't involved, his career was safe, and she could still become a partner one day. I couldn't believe how bold she was about this. I told her that I couldn't believe she wanted me to protect her boss, the guy she was having an affair with. She wanted me to throw away my clear advantage just to do her a favor? I started to stand up, but she grabbed my wrist and told me that she still wanted to talk to me. She said getting a partnership was the most important thing to her, and it was worth more than money. She said that if I kept Caleb's name out of the divorce settlement, then she was ready to let me have anything I wanted during the divorce. She offered a 60-40 asset split in my favor and promised not to ask for alimony. Her only requirement was that she wanted the apartment because it was an ideal location for her work. I sat back down and thought for a moment. Honestly, the deal was too good to be true. She really wanted to protect her promotion that badly. It made sense though. She had a good job and she wouldn't be hurting for money, even if she got no alimony from me. And I understood why she wanted the apartment. It was a nice place and it really was pretty close to her office. She had nothing to lose from offering this and everything to gain. I thought about what the deal meant to me. Taking her deal would help me in a lot of ways too. I wouldn't have to worry about alimony and I'd be free to focus on a fresh start. But I wasn't too sure about giving up the apartment. I'd been considering moving, but I hadn't come to a decision yet. But there was always that chance that I'd lose the apartment in a divorce anyway. I told her that I'd think about it and get in touch when I made a decision. The more I thought about it, the more uncomfortable the deal made me. It should have felt like a win. I know most divorced men would give anything to be in a position like mine, where they could walk away with most of the assets and a clean slate. But I didn't like the idea of protecting her lover. Just the fact that she had asked me that pissed me off. But after a few days of thinking about it, I decided to swallow my pride. There was a way I could eat my cake and have it too. I called her and let her know that I was ready to take her deal. I could hear the relief in her voice when she told me that her lawyer would send me the appropriate paperwork. I went through it with my lawyer, and he confirmed that everything there was legit. She'd be giving up her claim to alimony and agreeing to split the assets in my favor. We just needed to meet up to decide how the assets would be shared. That went smoothly enough. We were able to agree on how to split up most of the stuff, but whenever she wanted to fight me on something, I just gave her a pointed look. That was usually enough to get her to remember the deal and back down. When the divorce was settled, I went into the next part of my plan. I edited all of the screenshots into a neat document and sent it out to everyone whom I thought needed to see it. Her friends and family, her coworkers, and especially Caleb. I even found his wife through Facebook and sent it to her too. She was the last person I sent it to, along with a little personalized caption. Now you know what it feels like to have someone break your trust. Messages started flooding in almost immediately. Most of them were from friends trying to find out if this was real. Her parents called me, and they both sounded disbelieving. When I told them it was true, and that it was the cause of the divorce, they both sounded extremely disappointed. Her dad promised that he would talk to her. I didn't tell him that I honestly didn't care if he talked to her. She really wasn't my problem anymore. She called me herself about an hour later after I sent the message. She was crying and screaming. She was incomprehensible at first, but it was pretty obvious that she was upset about it. She spent a minute calling me every nasty name she knew. She kept screaming, "We had a deal," at me. I just smiled and enjoyed the music. When she pulled herself together enough to speak more clearly, she told me that Caleb's wife had shown up at the office and caused a huge scene. She hadn't even seen my text before that happened, so she was caught completely by surprise. She told me she had to run out of the office, and she was calling me from the parking lot. She said I'd ruined her career, and she didn't know how she could ever show her face there again. She hadn't been fired yet, but it was only a matter of time. And even if she wasn't, her dreams of becoming a partner were gone for good. I just said she had time to start over somewhere else. She was still kind of attractive, so if she hurried, she might be able to seduce another promotion out of someone before she got too old. That really set her off. She started screaming so loudly that I had pulled my phone away from my ear. She said I'd breached a contract. She threatened to call the cops on me, and she threatened to sue. I wasn't worried. I knew it was all talk. I reminded her that we hadn't written up a contract over our deal, and there was no one who could testify that we'd had a verbal agreement. And besides, was that really a topic that a lawyer would want to bring up in court? That she'd made a deal with her ex-husband to protect a promotion that she was screwing her boss for? We both knew she couldn't do a thing, and that just made her even angrier. I ended the call when I got tired of her screeching. About a week later, I got a message from Caleb's wife. She thanked me for coming forward. She told me that there'd been another situation like that with a secretary, and his company had swept it under the rug. He promised her that he would change, so she forgave him and gave him another chance. When she saw the messages I sent her, she realized that he was hopeless, and she decided to divorce him. She always told me that his partners had reached out to her to apologize and promised they were going to deal with the situation. According to her, it didn't look like he would be holding onto his position for much longer. The good news didn't stop there, though, because Mary called me another day to vent some more. She told me that she'd basically been forced to quit. The firm was starting an investigation into the accusations, and her co-workers were whispering behind her back. She told me she couldn't take it anymore, and she'd had to leave herself. She also revealed that Caleb had completely thrown her to the wind after everything came out. He was ghosting her completely, and she hadn't been able to talk to him even once after everything started. She was calmer this time, but she was still mad at me and told me I'd ruined her life. I'd destroyed her career and her new relationship after everything she'd done for me during the divorce settlement. That pissed me off, but I didn't let myself sink into screaming with her. I just told her that everything that happened to her was a result of her own actions, and hopefully she would learn from that one day. She'd been taking advantage of people for too long, and the train had come to an end here. I ended the call and blocked her after that. I don't know what happened to her and her career after that, and honestly, I don't care. I'm moving on. I got my payback. Did it make everything better? No. I'm still pulling my life back together and dealing with the emotional scars that she left me with. Was it worth it? Absolutely. I'm glad I was able to make both of them pay. I'm also happy that I was able to give her a taste of what she'd done to me before I cut her out of my life for good. I've moved to a new city to start a new life without her, and I honestly don't think I've ever been happier. Sending all those messages and letting everyone know what was up was exactly what she deserved. She wanted to hide the truth and keep climbing the ladder while stepping all over you. Good on you for not falling for her tricks and making sure she faced the consequences, OP. Do you know someone who tried to throw it all away for their career? Call them out in the comments below. And thank you for joining us today on rSpace. Be sure to like and subscribe and hit that notification bell so you don't miss out on our next video. See you next time.